How you doing, Rasmanites? Welcome to episode 4 of Wrestling the Way It Ought to Be. But also, as you can see, I put a subtitle on this one because I want to mostly talk about a dream match scenario that I have for WrestleMania 28, which is Chris Jericho versus CM Punk versus Daniel Bryan. Today, on the Razman's Reality. I do apologize, A, if I don't sound like myself. I'm getting over being sick. And B, if you hear any background noise, my nephew is here. And also, I'm fully aware that today is Monday and not Friday, but I decided that Monday is a better place for this series. Obviously, it's going to get replaced when there's a pay-per-view weekend because I'll do a pay-per-view review, and if there's something that really needs to be said, then I'll move this to Wednesday on pay-per-view weeks. And yes, I know TNA Genesis was last night, but I'm not completely sold on doing TNA reviews anymore. I used to do them and no one really seemed to care. All of you who watch the wrestling videos, I didn't get much feedback from them. So let me know in the comment box down below if you want me to do TNA reviews, and I'll maybe do a late Genesis one, or I'll start with the next TNA pay-per-view. I am going to do Ring of Honor reviews though. I just didn't get to Final Battle because I got so busy at Christmas time. So, as I said, most of what we're going to talk about today is now that Chris Jericho is officially back. This is what I would like to see happen at WrestleMania 28. Everybody thinks that it's going to be Chris Jericho versus CM Punk one-on-one to try and prove who the best in the world is. And while that would be a phenomenal matchup, WWE has tremendous opportunity because of the whole best in the world tie-in to really create an even better match. And that is Chris Jericho versus CM Punk versus Daniel Bryan. Because Chris Jericho for years was going around saying he is the best in the world at what he does. CM Punk then started calling himself the best in the world, but openly admitted that he stole the idea, the moniker, the gimmick, whatever you want to call it, from Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan, when he was Bryan Danielson in ROH, felt like he deserved to call himself the best in the world because he had been through so many arenas and areas throughout the world and learned just about every style that there is, which is something that he shares in common with both Punk and Jericho, but especially Jericho. Jericho is one of the few guys who can wrestle Japanese style, North American style, or Lucha Libre style. Basically any style of wrestling that you need Chris Jericho to do, he can do. And Punk can do that too, but he's not really ever been asked to really mess with the luchador very much, except for Rey Mysterio, and the Japanese style for him on a mainstay level has been non-existent. But anyway, the point is that all three of these guys have a legitimate claim to being the best wrestler in the world today. So, what I would like to see happen is Daniel Bryan holds on to the World Heavyweight Championship through Elimination Chamber. Whoever wins the Royal Rumble chooses to face the SmackDown champion, but all of a sudden Daniel Bryan switches it up and he says, you know what? Why wait until WrestleMania? I want to face you now live on SmackDown. He beats whoever wins the Royal Rumble, gets that over with, because I firmly believe that it is going to be a SmackDown superstar, and I'll get into that in a minute. That is the wrestling the way it ought to be part of today's episode. But the Royal Rumble winner becomes out of the equation. And then you have a situation where they really want to prove who the best in the world is between Jericho and Punk, but all of a sudden, just as they're about to finally make their match official for the WWE Championship, Daniel Bryan comes out and says, neither one of you have a right to claim that you're the best in the world because I am. And this gives WWE a golden opportunity to do something that I think they are ripe and ready for right now. Because with Randy Orton supposedly out, and again I'll get into that here in a minute, that's a giveaway of what I want to talk about here in a second. But with Randy Orton supposedly out, the SmackDown main event scene looks very, very weak right now. They don't have a lot of main event players at this point in time. So what they need to do is, instead of making SmackDown look so weak by comparison, instead of having to try and build up a guy maybe before he's ready, yeah, Daniel Bryan versus Wade Barrett would be a phenomenal match, and that would be my second choice for WrestleMania if this scenario doesn't happen. But I think you have the best opportunity you've had in years with the state that SmackDown is in to undispute the titles. I mean, they're running a super show on Raw week in and week out anyway. So why not just have one champion as the main champion, one undisputed WWE champion, and have the undisputed WWE champion go on both shows. Now, I know the immediate reaction of a lot of people is going to be, well, Raz, if they do that, that it's going to cause a lot of guys not to get pushed into the main event scene. And I can somewhat agree with that. But the thing about it is, it gives more relevance to the mid-card levels, which they've already been trying to do and succeeded in doing with Cody Rhodes and the Intercontinental title. And it also makes the Money in the Bank more relevant, because if you have one Money in the Bank match at WrestleMania every year, you can make sure that your Money in the Bank winner is a guy that you want to put future stock in, but thinks he needs more work, and you can spend and you can spend that year building up that guy. You can spend the whole year, however long you want him to hold on to the briefcase, building up that guy to a credible main event status, like they were supposed to do with Daniel Bryan, but injuries on SmackDown forced them to change their plans. So what do you all think? Could a match between Daniel Bryan, Chris Jericho, and CM Punk to prove who really is the best in the world happen at WrestleMania? How would you book it? How would you set it up? Should it happen? And the Wrestling the Way It Ought to Be portion really doesn't really fit the name this week, but it's the only thing that I could think about talking about. And that is what I think is actually going to happen coming out of the Royal Rumble match, and that's the unfortunate fact that I think that Randy Orton isn't out for as long as they say he's going to be out. I don't think his injury is as severe as what they're letting on, and I think that Randy Orton is going to pull John Cena circa '08 with the Royal Rumble being in his hometown. I think Randy Orton wins the Royal Rumble this year as a surprise entrance, and I would love to see Dolph Ziggler be WWE Champion and Randy Orton to face Dolph Ziggler. I think that could be a great match, as could Randy Orton and Daniel Bryan, but that would mean Daniel Bryan would have to turn heel. But I don't think Punk and Jericho, if Punk and Jericho are going to have a one-on-one match, I don't think they need the WWE title in there. So Ziggler and Orton for a championship match at WrestleMania is something I've been thinking about. But yeah, that's just my opinion. I don't really want to see Randy Orton win the Royal Rumble. I would much rather it go to Wade Barrett, especially if Dolph Ziggler's not going to be in the match. If something happens where Ziggler gets put in the match, then Ziggler, in my opinion, is a foregone conclusion winner. But with him facing Punk for the title at the Rumble, I don't think he's going to be in the Rumble match itself. So I'd much rather go to Wade Barrett, but I just have a sinking suspicion, that it's going to go to Randy Orton. So as I said, feel free to leave video responses as well as comments down below. I really think this topic could be interesting for everybody to discuss. So about the Punk versus Jericho versus Bryan matchup, let me know what you think, as well as anything else I've talked about today. This is reality according to the Razman. And Razman style, it's not just a catchphrase, but a way of life.